Well, hello. Thank you for joining me this afternoon as I present Praising Your Son's Progress, a lesson about creating ceremonies that last. So, right now, we're in the third stage of our series, and we're going to be discussing how to help your sons be successful by creating ceremonies for them. So, if you can get with the partner, we're going to do our bell work right now. I want you to describe the most memorable moment that you had as a child with your parents, specifically with your father, if he was present in your life. Okay, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead and start. Okay. Hopefully that was beneficial for you and your partner. You each had about a minute to share. We won't really dialogue right now, but I would like you to write down some of those thoughts because we'll be discussing that later on in the series. But the power of ceremony, let's get right into it. There are major moments in our lives that we can never forget about. I know for me, it was my 13th birthday. I was finally a teenager. My 16th, it happened again, and my 18th birthday. All days I'll never forget. I can describe them. And even my 10th birthday. Also, a major day for me, October 3rd, 1999, the day I gave my life to Christ. It was a ceremony like I would never believe, never forget about. I walked down the aisle. I accepted him into my heart. But that was a ceremony for me. The day that I was baptized in water at my church, that was another ceremony that I'd never forget. And also being baptized in the Holy Spirit was more of a heavenly ceremony. My high school graduation was something that will always go down as an amazing memory for me. My college graduation, and then the last major ceremony that I remember is my wedding day, a ceremony that really changed the course of my life. And right now, it's changing the course of my son's lives as well. But we all remember these special moments in our own lives. The biggest reason is because they each included a ceremony, something that would seal the deal and take us to that next stage in life. So a ceremony can kind of be split up into three parts, or if I were to describe it as an illustration, I'm going to use volleyball as an illustration. I love watching volleyball here at the high school. The girls and the guys, they play so vigorously with a lot of intensity. But there's three parts in volleyball that are really exciting to watch. And when you see it, everybody goes crazy. It's the dig, the spike, and the set. You know, a dig is when an athlete, they get down in a position, they're on their knees, they're diving onto the ground, they're absorbing the spike that the opponent hit, and they're saving their team by hitting the ball, keeping it alive so that they can have a few more hits. And, a quote from the book with, Raising a Modern Day Knight by Robert Lewis, he says, a dad who is sincere, honest, loving, and faithful puts himself into a position to influence his sons for Christ. This is right here a great picture of a man setting himself up for a dig. He's in position, he's diving down, he's ready to go, he's engaged, and he's setting his teammates up. The next one is a set. So after the dig, the ball's in the air. Now you get the player who is going to set the ball that's going to prep somebody else for a spike. But the athlete is using precision and finesse to set up a team for the spike. Boys need to be taught from a dad's lips, not just a movie or a video or a picture, what a man, is, how a man should conduct himself, and also what a man should live for. This part too requires precision and finesse because if the dads don't get it right, they may truly have negative long-term effects on their sons' lives. And as much as amazing as single moms are, dads, you still need to be in the picture. It is not enough to be out of the picture and trying to communicate long distance to your sons. You have to be present. You have to be aware of the son's surrounding. You have to be there holding his hand, guiding him as if he was 2 years old, crossing a dangerous intersection. You got to be that father setting your son up for a spike. And the last part of a ceremony that is really going to be a major characteristic is a spike is an athlete must aggressively attack the net to drive the ball back over the net to the opponent. This action is a statement of dominance. It's a statement that requires a player to rise above all the other athletes on the court and to come down with some intensity and some aggressiveness that the opponent's not ready for. A ceremony is equal to a spike. It drives the point home with an unmistakable certainty about what you expect for your son. So, what makes a good ceremony? I've got four characteristics that make a good ceremony. The first one is memorable ceremonies are costly, not just financially, although it does require some money, but this means in terms of the planning, the amount of time that goes into it. For example, when I was marrying my wife, I wrote a poem for her and I read this to her in front of all the attendees at my wedding. And it took time, it took effort, but I wanted her to know that it wasn't just me walking down the aisle to meet with her, but it was me putting effort and time and love and energy into my relationship with her. Also, memorial ceremonies, they give value. Okay. The best ceremonies will let the son know that he is highly valued by the father and that he knows by the end of this thing that he is important. An effective ceremony flat out says, you are valued, you are important, you are special. God has ordained you to be somebody, and I want to help you get there. The second or the third point is that a memorable ceremony employs symbols. Graduations give diplomas, weddings give rings. What will you give your son? When my son when my son is in puberty and we're going through this ceremony, I want to give him a promise ring. And I know there are some thoughts about this. Why? I want him to know that he is promised to God, that he is ordained to be a witness and to be a man of God. And so I want him to know that his purpose is to be pure for God, but also to be a light, to be an example for God. Um, the last portion of a characteristic for a ceremony is the memorable ceremonies have to empower a life with a vision. The ceremony should mark the transition to the next phase of a son's life, eventually into his manhood. Okay, this is that last stage of that ceremony where that child, he's leaving there knowing that I've got a vision, I've got a plan for my life, and God is going to do something with me. So there are four ceremonies that I really want to encourage you to use to promote your sons as they grow older. The first one is as they are going through puberty, once they get through that, the great transition is at the start of adolescence when a boy's body wreaks havoc over his mind. Fellas, we've all been there before. We all know what that feeling is when we wake up and we are not sure what's going on. We don't know who to ask. We're embarrassed to ask our mom. We're kind of nervous and scared to ask our dad. But we have to be sure that we can honor our sons as they go through this and let them know that, hey, we've been there, we're with you, and we are going to honor you because this is a rite of passage for every young man that is alive today. The second one is high school graduation. For the first time in his life, the son's going to have an opportunity to experience freedom from his parent, going away to college, having a job, paying his own bills. He has to face life, and he's full of fear. He's full of uncertainty, but he's also full of the fear of knowing that he's responsible for whatever happens that's coming up next. He has to know that he has what it takes to succeed. And dads, it's your job to make sure he knows that he knows what it takes to be a man and that he knows what it takes to be successful. Step three is his college graduation. It's now your son's obligation to face the world on his own. He's out of his parents' house. He's out of college. He's paying his bills. He's paying his student loans back, or he had a job through college. But the sons that aren't attending college, they also need a ceremony. Some of these guys might be going to the military. They might be in vocational school. Whatever it might be, they just might start a career right away. They may be a journeyman. But whatever they begin after high school, when there's that period of time lapsing and they've been able to grow and mature, they will still need a ceremony. So whether they're graduating college or they're doing something different, they need a ceremony to promote them to this stage in between college and marriage. The final one is marriage. Step four is the marriage, the final ceremony for your young men, unless you elect to find more and I encourage you to do that. Don't just stop because I've said step four. You can continue on to step 5, 6 through 10 if there are other opportunities for you to praise your sons. But when a man must assume the responsibility for a wife and the leadership of a family, This is the stage 4 ceremony, one of the most important ones, because you are giving your son to a woman that he must lead, and he must lead his family so that he can follow your example and have these same steps to guide his sons to be young men. A lot of young men are just reaching out, they're calling out, and they're saying one thing: if only someone would notice. Every boy is saying this to his father, to his mother, to his sister, to his friends, to his coaches. Dads, it's your responsibility to notice what your sons are doing so that you can honor and praise them. So I'm done talking and boring you. Now it's your turn to discuss this and talk. So here's what I like you to do. With your partner or a small group of 2 to 3 guys, you're going to get together, and in a small group, I want you to outline the 4 ceremonies that you're going to use to commemorate the important moments in your son's life and his journey. Okay. So in your small groups, define them, define what these ceremonies might look like. And then I want you to create a PowerPoint presentation outlining what you're going to do during these ceremonies and how you're going to make this meaningful and impactful for your boys. Okay. I might also like you to create or locate some family heirlooms that will be part of the growth and development of your sons. All right. So we have about 20 minutes left. There should be plenty of time for you to get with the group, and you guys can at least start outlining this process. And this should be completed by the time we meet next week. Okay, thank you, and I'll let you guys get it. I'll be around at your tables at your groups to kind of just check in with you and see how I can help you develop these ceremonies for your boys.